and I'll never back down. In the middle of the ring is where I lay the smack down. Against all odds, I will always prevail. So when you step to me, it's like hell in a cell.
Greetings and salutations, this is Christopher Daniels. I'm talking to my main man Delzinski right now. Any video game show, any video game channel, any YouTube channel called Vintage Shizzle is indeed hashtag Daniels approved.
Yo, alright guys, Delzinski here. Welcome to We Talk, a slightly delayed We Talk, but finally, as The Rock would say, we are here. And as always, I am joined by the one and only Professor. It is Weeds. How are you doing, mate?
I'm alright, mate. We've had more delays than trains over here, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
I've got a flooded bathroom. You're hungover. No, sorry. Extended birthday celebrations. But yeah, there's been a lot to talk about, which I suppose is the main reason why we are delayed.
Yes. It's kind of up and down week. So I mean,
happy birthday, by the way, you miserable git.
Oh, thanks very much.
It's been an up and down week. It's meant to be good when you have a big birthday.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Had a few Steve Weisers, celebrating. No stunners, but.
Aww, that's a shame.
But yeah, it's been a busy one. So this week's been a bit different from the norm, but we will get back to We Talk weekends. Definitely. But this one's a one-off. So yeah, it's what do we call it this week? We Talk Monday.
We Talk eventually.
Yeah. But finally we're here anyway. So what we wanted to talk about, and plus it gave us a little bit longer to maul over the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with one Triple H, which was kind of interesting. I'm not entirely sure it was as interesting as Vince. It felt like maybe Vince was the guinea pig to get them prepared for when they brought Triple H in, so they could really WWE a fight. But
they had him well under control.
Yeah, so it kind of didn't feel like an off-the-cuff interview. There's a few podcasts out there. I was listening to Taz's podcast today where he kind of said he kind of expected it to be a bit more in your face, but it wasn't. No issue with the way Austin did it, but it just could have been maybe a little bit more. The questions could have been a little bit more controversial towards Triple H. Maybe test him a bit more, but there you go. I mean, I think we all expected it to be a bit on the fence when it comes to the WWE. They weren't going to be pushed, and they weren't going to be pushed around, particularly by Austin. And they set up a studio for him anyway, so it kind of leads you to believe that it was a bit of a setup from the offset.
Yeah, there were definitely questions that weren't asked, and some of it was quite telling, and it felt a lot more orchestrated than the Vince one, like you say. So I suppose my first question to you, outside of the podcast, has WWE had a little change of heart on what they're doing after the Rumble?
Yeah, just a little change of heart, but I've got to admit, I am highly confused by the whole situation. I mean,
tell Weeds. Come on, tell Weeds.
I cannot, for starters, understand the change in terms of the reason. The reason being that Roman Reigns couldn't have won the Royal Rumble and couldn't have that decision stand on the basis that The Rock interfered, although The Rock never touched a participant that was still actively in the match. Because The Rock came in to the Royal Rumble, all guns blazing, helped Roman Reigns by taking out the Big Show and Kane, but he never touched Rusev. So for me...
Well, being fair, WWE had forgot that Rusev was in the match.
It was a bullshit one. It was a bit of... It was not really the greatest, and it was almost... It did come across a little bit, again, tongue-in-cheek, sticking it to the fans a little bit, even though it's supposed to make the fans happy that they decided to throw Daniel Bryan or Seth Rollins at the time in the mix. Definitely just felt a little bit contrived, and the way that Triple H kind of sold it to us was almost like we're, not even us. Roman Reigns is a bit of a dumbass by the sounds of it,
Oh, come on, it was brilliant. It's like, right, how we're going to try and cover this up. How can we do it? Right, let's try and insult as many people as we possibly can, including the active wrestlers, and then come up with some elaborate thing, like you say, including The Rock, which makes no sense whatsoever.
Do you know what? The thing that kind of amazes me about this is that why was it not Sting that did this damage? Because
I told you to include him on the pay-per-view, didn't I?
but it would make so much sense. Yes, he's not the cousin of Roman Reigns, but that really doesn't matter in this context in terms of the Rumble. If Sting had come in and then Scorpion Death dropped a Rusev and then took out the Authority and then just left, I mean, there would be no need to even question it. Triple H could easily layeth the smacketh a downeth on that stipulation. Triple H could have nailed it then with the reason why, because he's got his beef with Sting. He's hating the fact that he's the vigilante that people seem to be forgetting. But,
franchise vigilante.
Yeah, Booker T style. I mean, that for me would have worked perfectly, but instead they keep throwing The Rock in there. I mean, are we going to get a triple threat between Sting, Triple H, and The Rock at WrestleMania?
He only does run-ins, so no.
Oh, I see.
But no, I completely tell you, it didn't make a lot of sense. But I suppose on the other side of the coin, it probably sounds like we're moaning a bit, wouldn't you say? Because we were begging for Daniel Bryan to be involved in the title picture.
But did it? This is the problem, right? This is the problem.
I don't think even Daniel Bryan believed that the reasons he was giving on Raw were the reasons why he'd be allowed back in.
Did it make you happy though? Because this is the really weird bit, and maybe this is the whole point that Triple H says you can't make wrestling fans happy. Because when I did hear this was the holy plan that they'd come up with, I just thought, what a waste of time it was for Roman Reigns to win the Rumble, and how out of order is this? And
imagine
potentially
that, 2 Rumbles that meant nothing 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and I mean, potentially, maybe that is why they've done it this way, because I actually did, for a few minutes, actually feel sorry for Roman Reigns. I thought, yeah, this is a load of rubbish, to be honest, and I kind of wouldn't mind Roman Reigns going over at Fastlane and going on to the main event now.
Well, I suppose Fastlane is a whole nother we talk away, but they reacted, didn't they? And I suppose we're coming on to the podcast a bit, is what we heard was that WWE react when they hear something. Now, as a normal fan watching it over the last 3 years now, we know that's bullshit most of the time. But I think the podcast was a perfect opportunity to say, do you know what? We are going to listen. But it was so in your face, we are listening. And this is where we really do sound like we are moaning. Was that, yeah, we're going to listen. And you've got everything you want the night after the Royal Rumble when we screwed it up. And that's where it comes across as bullshit as well, because
it didn't have to go that way, did it?
No, it didn't. It could have just gone with Roman Reigns, and I actually like what they did with him on Raw, because as we said in the previous We Talk, I've got no problem with Roman Reigns whatsoever. I do have problems with the podcast and things like that. Particularly, I don't like the coming out the kayfabe and all that kind of stuff. It should, for me, it's still real, damn it. I want to believe in what I'm watching, and I don't like Vince, and I definitely didn't like Triple H talking about it as candidly as they did. But I suppose that's it. I mean, I thought Reigns came out of Raw fairly well. I thought the only bit I didn't like was the Big Show big spear. I mean, the spear was awesome, but it would have made more sense if he was like trying to grab Daniel Bryan's foot every couple of minutes or something like that, or really be a distraction, because all that happened was Rollins rolled out the ring and then Reigns came out. So I was like, oh, okay, I don't get that. But the 2 spears he gave on Big Show, and I think it was it no, it wasn't Mercury, it was Noble. I think it was Noble anyway. They were awesome, and I think they if you were going to call Raw anything last week, it would be the Raw that repaired Roman Reigns. See how many R's I got in there? Alliteration. Check me out.
I thought it was a really good segment towards the end, and I thought even from the beginning, the damage control was kind of on, because when Reigns came out,
they really pissed up the week on the Royal Rumble, and they were like throwing everything they possibly could into this Raw, didn't they?
Yeah, I didn't really think that Reigns. The crowd wasn't as bad as what they were expecting. Maybe that was on the basis that they'd had a few days to cool down. But I think
this is where they have to be more intelligent, where they put their pay-per-views. But
Yeah.
I suppose that's a whole other discussion. But no, they weren't. And by all accounts, the reaction to Reigns since has been quite good. Well, according to them anyway.
Yeah, I thought in that main event when he came out and he Superman punched, he did Superman punch him, didn't he? Yeah, he Superman punched Rollins. I thought the whole
edge of the ring apron.
I thought the whole the atmosphere. What he didn't get booed for that. I mean, he got cheered, and I sort of felt that the damage control was done. It's kind of interesting now going forward how that between Bryan and Reigns is going to work. I don't really think it's going to be Bryan Reigns face to face. I think you're just going to have Rollins keep interjecting himself constantly,
and hopefully Lesnar.
Yeah, I mean the champ isn't here.
Well, he might be tonight by all accounts for Raw. But what I would have done if you really wanted to get Reigns as completely in that title picture as a legitimate going to take Brock Lesnar out, I would have given him Triple H at Fastlane. That's kind of how I would have gone there. I would have built up, it's controversy, and I would have come up with an even more bullshit excuse than they did for the controversy, and that's how I would do it. If you wanted to keep it Lesnar and Reigns, but potentially we're looking at. Let's talk about Fastlane quickly before the podcast. Just a quick gut reaction where we are now. I mean, about 10, 12 days before. How do you see that match going? How storyline wise? Before I suppose we're going to get into it on another We Talk anyway.
I still think Reigns is going over.
You see, I think that would be a very WWE thing to do, but where they seem to be going with the listening to the fans at the moment, is could you potentially see a no contest or some kind of interference coming from this, and then us getting a 3-way between Lesnar, Reigns, and Bryan at Mania?
You could, but I don't think Vince would do it twice.
He's not going to listen that much, is he?
I don't think. I think last year it was forced. The hand was forced. He had to do a triple threat, and I think this year is a bit too much. But I also think as well, I like triple threat matches. I liked the one we had at the Royal Rumble. But I always think the main event, champion versus challenger, kind of is what it should be at WrestleMania, because it's the big payoff from the Royal Rumble.
It is, and that is what Mania is meant to be. It's meant to be the big payoff of, even though, and again, I'm sure we'll come on to this, that they said the Bryan story arc was 8 to 9 months long. Bullshit. It doesn't. There is no big long arc here. The only arc, I suppose, a majority of people want to see is Rollins with the championship or Lesnar retaining. There is no long arc going into this for me, really. And I suppose that's for the second year in a row, WWE are making these changes, or seemingly making these changes, when they would never do this kind of stuff years ago. They would be so clear in where they were going. And it just doesn't strike me that's what they are at the moment.
Well, that's the issue. They just don't seem to have a lot of direction, and that kind of mentioned that on the podcast, which obviously we're talking about coming.
I think we're going to have to talk about it.
But I mean, Austin said it. He said he remembered back in the day. It was usually you had the one writer, and now you've got all
bloody fleet of them.
Yeah, you've got all the chefs in the kitchen. But it was very interesting to keep noticing that Triple H was very, very quick to point out that only one man makes all the decisions, and he definitely was making a point there, and it was shown when they started talking about NXT, because it's a different animal completely. But
it's his baby.
Yes, and it was very clear that he was pointing out that regardless of how many we have, how many writers, it all goes through Vince. So when we say Vince is out of touch, I think that answers the question. If it all goes through Vince and Vince makes the final say and he's getting it wrong week on week, that is the problem. No. And that's a lot of the conclusion that's come from this podcast, is that the company will be in a good place moving forward because Triple H seemingly gets it with NXT and what he's doing there. And at the moment, that product is what a lot of people want to see as the main product. And they're not getting that because Vince calls the shots.
Okay, definitely. So we're firmly into the podcast now, aren't we?
We are.
Couple of points there. I think for me, NXT is the wrestling show, Raw is the entertainment show, and that is the main difference for me between the two. I don't know what you thought, but when I was listening to Mr. Hunter Hurst Helmsley going through his podcast with Austin, did you feel like he was throwing Vince under the bus somewhat?
It was a bit terrorizing, wasn't it?
It was a little bit terrorizing. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe how candid he was actually being at times, and how much emphasis he put on. Basically, he was throwing up two hands and saying, "If you got a problem with the actual main product, it's not me. I'm there as creative control. I control the talent." But storylines, as he said repeatedly, and he emphasised the point, it all goes through Vince. So if I wouldn't have been overly happy if I was Vince hearing that and basically saying, if you got a problem with the program, that's all my father-in-law. That's the boss man.
Well, yeah, and doing that, like I say, it's that finger pointing just goes to show that that's where it's fallen out of touch. Because I'm pretty sure that Triple H would probably book these events much more differently. The other thing was he was very proud to talk about the pro wrestling aspect, whereas Vince in his podcast
Sports entertainment
wouldn't even touch on it. Vince was pretty much that sports entertainment is the here and now, and pro wrestling doesn't exist anymore. Whereas Triple H, coming from the background of being a wrestler, still an active wrestler, he's very much into still saying that it's about the wrestling, and he shows that with his NXT product every week. So
my question to you then is, if Vince has as much control and say as Triple H and others have made out, why don't we see Vince on TV as much?
I don't know.
A real stumper. I mean, because that would be it, and I would expect to see Vince a whole lot more than we currently are. Because I mean, star wise, he always brings in the numbers, doesn't he? And that's not. I mean, I get the age factor, but you know, still when he's on TV, it's more often than not you've got to watch it, haven't you?
Well, I always thought we were going to get some sort of Vince interjection with the Daniel Bryan storyline last year, but it never came. You could even say that it could rear its head round about now, around about fast. Getting fed up of all the issues with the Authority. I mean, the whole Authority storyline is pretty damn wishy-washy when it comes to Vince. I mean, Vince was there the one to try and put that match up where they lost the power, but where's he been since that? I mean,
we haven't seen him. I think he was there the night after, but that was it. I mean, he made the Survivor Series relevant.
But then everything from the Survivor Series was next to nothing now. It doesn't mean anything. And you've got a vigilante running around who apparently isn't even under contract to WWE. He just comes and goes as he pleases.
No way. I mean, he's managed to sneak his T-shirts in to merch. There's all kinds of dodgy stuff going on.
I don't know where he's doing his face paint. That's what I want to know. Who's doing it for him? Gold Dust? Someone's an insider.
Maybe it's Cody. You never know.
I reckon Hornswoggle was letting him in.
what through like the back of a cupboard of Narnia or something?
Yes.
But that's the point. If they're saying Vince is active behind the scenes as he is, and apparently is, why don't we see him more often? And I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but why don't we? You know, it doesn't make sense, because the main thing, if you haven't got the stars like they used to have, is that you want an authority figure. That is the authority figure. He's right there.
That is a really good point. The trouble is with Vince is I always see him. Yeah, I know he calls the shots, but
maybe he doesn't trust himself to say like really dodgy shit anymore.
I have a feeling that there's just so much going on in terms of the network and everything else that they've built now, that he oversees all of that, but still demands to have the say and the look over the scripts. So I think whereas
you hear about rewrites all the time, don't you?
Yeah, and I think whereas as opposed to him being an active character, just behind the scenes, he's become, you know, even more so controlling that. Although he might not be there, or he might not be at the event to call all the shots, he will still be making sure that his presence is felt by making decisions that potentially cause rewrites, And that's where I see his time being spent, in addition to doing all the business deals and the WWE Network and whatever else he fancies doing.
I suppose just for me, I've been watching regularly since '91, so a long time. And apart from '95, which was kind of the one of the oddest years of booking I think I've ever seen, when it came to getting the main event right and where we're going with the product, it kind of always made sense. And I just can't believe despite age or anything like that someone's got this out of touch this quickly to the point where we're getting botched finishes. Or does this come into the talent? I mean, and people grabbing brass rings and things like that they don't know.
No.
I mean,
no.
Because I mean, it shouldn't be the cluster that it is a lot of the time at the moment, should it?
It's not. Yeah, it's not the brass ring, and I'll give you a good example of this because I'm currently watching. I'm watching the best of Raw and SmackDown 2014, which I'll be doing a review on very, very soon. But
cheap plug.
Yes, I've been watching this, and what's very interesting about it, and I'll obviously cover this on the review anyway. But what's very interesting about it is that there's a match between Cena and Cesaro, and we all know how controversial Cesaro is with all of this stuff that's going on with the brass ring and where he is in the position of the company. But He's interesting.
Cleaning the brass ring.
yeah, pretty much. What's interesting about it is that this title has a whole segment of WWE talking to the fans and saying about Cesaro, and all of the feedback is that Cesaro went toe to toe with John Cena, took him to the next level, and that this is a guy that should be main event in the company, and he can main event Raw every single week. And they've actually put this in the DVD, and again, it just kind of again goes back to this issue where it's cutting and chopping and changing. That, I mean, this was a point where they obviously saw that they wanted Cesaro to get somewhere, but then they failed in doing that, and they failed in executing that, and Cesaro's the one that feels the brunt of it, and the WWE just lose another good guy that could top the company and becomes a basic mid-carder. Even now, I don't even consider Cesaro as a mid-carder because he doesn't really do anything relevant. And you look back at times when it was Elimination Chamber, Orton as champion, that run that he had there, they were guiding him on a path like a Daniel Bryan.
I think that's what happened. The run happened at the wrong time for him. If it happens in August, just after SummerSlam or like that, you're potentially getting, your next big guy. He became so hot, wasn't it? Just around the sort of just before the Rumble.
But do you do what they do? Because what they do and what I would do differently is their decision is that when these things go wrong, they completely capitulate. They
go 180.
His push is dead. And I know he's back with Tyson Kidd now, and now they're talking about him being, like a long-term tag team person.
This is what's so cool though, because this is what we talk about Austin in this podcast. This is what happened with Austin. Is that they gave him a bit of a push in WCW. It wasn't really, it was either a combination of injuries or wasn't really going anywhere. So they stuck him with Pillman, which is very much like sticking Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. And at that point, I suppose you've got to say the WWE are aware he's there, but they're not overly fussed what he's doing. And this is where, he can build himself up again. Should he have to do it this way? No, there was a complete opportunity, like we said, to take advantage of it earlier last year, sorry, and they didn't. And I think I think Triple H said that the guy is John Cena and has been, and I think he said he's head and shoulders above most other people have been in the last decade or so, and that's what they typically do. They did it with Hogan, they've done it with Cena now. They go for the safe option.
Yeah, but the safe option ain't going to be there forever.
Of course it's not, and that's the problem, where you've got this vacuum of talent that doesn't... Well, it does exist, they're just...
What I wanted Austin to ask in this podcast, which I feel this was one of the biggest questions he could have asked, and he didn't, and I don't think it was something that they could have turned down and said no. What I felt that he should have said was, when you bring up guys to NXT and they move to this roster where it's completely different and it's moving away from what they've learned in NXT, it's sports entertainment. Where does Triple H feel the failing is happening to allow these guys to get over? And he should have then brought up the likes of your Bo Dallas, who had a gimmick and filtered away. The Ascension, I would have questioned why they're being buried on a week-by-week basis, because I'd like to get to the bottom of who's making those decisions, because Triple H does the job with them down at NXT, only for them to come up and somebody is making the wrong decision. And this is not just going to happen to these guys now. You've got not Sami Zayn, you've got Adrian Neville looking to go up. Sami Zayn will go up eventually. And then you've got these guys, which you can tell Triple H is 110% behind. You guys like your Kevin Owens and your Fergal Devitt, aka Finn Balor. And this doesn't vote well for them. And that was a question that I wanted him to ask him and nail him on, because I want to know why it goes so terribly wrong with the jump.
This is what's crazy at the moment, because you look at the guys who are on top, and they're your muscle guys, your Roman Reigns, John Cena, Rusev being pushed through, Brock Lesnar obviously huge. What's below? What is NXT? Because it's not that.
Well, it's not. It's not. It's a completely different kettle of fish, and
that's why they fail.
And that's what he said as well. I mean, he said it's almost become an entity or a brand itself, and that's not what it should be. It's good that it's become that, because it's actually given us an alternative to watch some decent pro wrestling as opposed to watching sports entertainment. But it's not what it should be. What it should be is an elevation for these guys to then, when they do come up to that main roster, they're not repackaged again. They're coming up as of what they've learnt from there and just becoming even better. But it doesn't work. And
I think that's it, because there are a couple of crucial things that came out of that podcast. One was about the promos and how they work, and Triple H, like you say, was very old school wrestling. The other half that seems prevalent at the moment is about the entertainment side of the business, and that is when what are the names you more frequently than not hear linked with WWE at the moment, because it's UFC guys, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's and that's what you sense the main product is trying to do. And he talked about this, and this is what I suppose like to explore quickly. And that's finding the audience, because the way Triple H told that audience tale was Attitude Era. We knew completely what our demographic was. He said kids. I think he meant teenagers. But
they would have definitely liked seeing Sable and people like that. The kids, wouldn't they? They'll love seeing.
Well, I wasn't complaining.
A bit of Sable and Sunny.
Well, not a lot of Sable most of the time.
Choppy, your peep on a weekly basis.
But this is what it is, and he said at the moment we are trying to broach all of these demographics, and I arguably don't think they need to. Your core audience is still, you've got the kids. The kids are going to follow it regardless, because it was when it was Attitude Era, it was the cool thing to watch. And your demographic where you're getting your booze from are more often are going to be like guys anywhere between 18 to 35 who grew up watching a different take on the business. So Triple H said that he understands today's audience, and I think they're trying to dictate today's audience that they want everyone. They're greedy. And he said he knows where the business stands and what they're trying to do. And I think that's the main problem, isn't it? So I don't think they need to be trying to capture everyone like they do a lot of the time, because it's for me, it's not. It just, this is why we've got this mishmash of an identity of a company, and why we end up with the mess that we're in half the time.
Yeah, but that's a great example as well of the whole constant ridiculousness with the promos. Whereas, again, very contradictory of the two brands again, NXT, and we've got the main show where NXT is being given that element of freedom. These guys are supposed to be learning to talk openly, like Triple H said. That him and Austin used to just freestyle it.
And he said he even said what we've said week in, week out. There's the corporate obligation that you have to be careful of what you say. And if you're scripting stuff, Roman Reigns is always going to be exactly how Roman Reigns is. And if this is what wrestling's going to be like, you going to keep watching?
Well, it's just not going to get any better, is it? If it's going to stay that way. I mean, did you see the YouTube clip? I think it was on the WWE Network, to be honest. But did you see the clip? I saw it was leaked out anyway, of Daniel Bryan reading that script.
No, I haven't seen this. What happens?
Have you not seen that? Where they did those backstage interviews with the bad weather for Raw.
Yeah.
Bryan was meant to be questioning something about Roman, and then they said cut, and then he's like, I think he said something along the lines of, "Did I put Roman over okay? Did I?" And he's got a script. I mean, it's not.
I have no problem with the bullet points because you've got to know where you're going. But to the point where Roman Reigns, you have watched the guy trip over words that have not been written down well, have they?
I thought he was, just to quickly say, I thought he was better on Raw this week. I think it felt a bit more him. But like I say to you, these sort of things that leak out don't do the WWE any favours when you're seeing guys referring to scripts and stuff. When I just think of things like Austin, who used to just say what constantly, and
I'm sure it was scripted. A lot of it, but not to the extent. They just knew where they had to get to.
But you knew with him, it was like with Austin, and it's a great example of Austin. Everything was so intense and aggressive, and even if it wasn't aggressive, he was trying to be funny. It still felt like Austin. It did.
Well, this
never felt
came up again.
Like anything else.
And this is the main reason Lesnar's over, because he is genuine. I honestly look at Lesnar and think he could, he ripped me in half, quite literally. And that's the problem with most of the promos you hear, they're so forced, or it's the same crap again and again and again at the moment.
But do you?
That's what's so good about CM Punk. Yeah, he might be a complete dick at times, but at least when he did a promo, you actually believe what he was saying.
But do you not think as well that's probably also an issue? This probably goes to like territories and where people came from, and obviously Triple H was quite clear by saying that if you come from the Indies, I don't know what, and Taz said this in his podcast, I don't know what Triple H classes as the Indies. Does he class things like TNA, Ring of Honor, all as indie circuit now? Because
I think anything below WWE is classed as the Indies.
Because that is a problem in itself, and
that's not my classing, by the way.
No, but what's so interesting about that is that when you think of guys like Austin, you remember him in WCW. You do remember him as the ringmaster, but you always look to Austin like he had that badass approach to him. Even when he was in WCW as a stunning Steve Austin, I think it was. You always knew he had that element of meanness, and he had that character. ECW, he was nuts in ECW.
He just believed what he was doing.
Yeah, and it's this, with Lesnar, it's always been that beast, that legit. And when he moved to UFC, I think with the new guys, because they do simply usually come from the NXT brand, you don't really get that sense of background from them. So I don't, maybe that's another thing where you don't quite interact with these guys, whereas you'd heard of possibly like a Seth Rollins. I think they pinched him from Ring of Honor, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Daniel Bryan, Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see where I'm going? Fergal Devitt, New Japan.
I mean, this is again a crucial bit, is that, I mean, at the same time where he's saying, Finn Balor came in and we're giving him, he couldn't believe how much there was behind the scenes and where to stand for certain cameras and things. But equally, he's saying you're an indie guy, but you've got to adapt to our system. So basically he's saying at the same time, you've got to watch the same thing again and again and again, which is not why I want to watch wrestling.
Well, the thing with Balor is he can adjust his understand the element of, because I've heard him say at the Performance Center that he never quite understood the whole show factor, and he now understands that being at NXT.
And Austin again is another one who's quite okay with saying, I didn't care where I was doing it. It was the other guys to put the cameras where they thought I was going to be. But
that's the thing. I mean, they can teach him that. I don't have an issue with that, but don't tell him to tone his in-ring technique down. And I don't really think he has. I'm going to be honest. If you'd seen the match on NXT last week between him and Hideo Itami, the drop kick in the corner, he nearly takes his freaking head off. But you don't.
But that's what wrestling
came from
should
the hard
be
hitting
about.
style. He came from the hard hitting style of Japan. He's learnt in British wrestling as well. Why is that such an issue? I know
It
why
shouldn't
it's an
be.
issue. I know why it's an issue, but like
this is what was so good about watching wrestling, is that you would say Bret Hart and Ric Flair, two of the best technical wrestlers of all time. Watch them; they're completely different to watch, and that's what's great about when we grew up watching wrestling, is that you could watch a load of wrestlers who've been trained in the various territories that they had, and you would see something different each time. And that's my main problem with WWE at the moment, is that every match just feels the same for me.
Everyone's kind of. I'm not talking about NXT now. I'm talking about main roster. Everyone's kind of similar. I mean,
and you know what you're going to get. You're going to get finisher.
Yeah, special move.
Spot.
Signature spot. But you don't have things like a match that's developed over a leg, like a leg injury or something like that, where it's been at pinpointing a body part and the whole match is worked on that. And
I mean, just think about, Bret Hart when he lost the belt to Bob Backlund at Survivor Series. The whole thing became about the chicken wing, which was the movie was, and that was the story itself. That whole match was about that, and whether or not Bret could get out of it. And obviously they then threw in the towel and all those other bits and pieces. But it wasn't just, we're going to put Bob Backlund in the sharpshooter and then he's going to put Bret in the chicken wing and we'll see which one holds the better hold. It just had more to it, and it doesn't feel like WWE does that an awful lot now. No,
I think there's a clear issue with like I was saying before, is that with guys like Rollins, who came from elsewhere, you kind of know a bit about his history and his background. Everybody knows about guys like Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens now, and those guys when they move up. And you've seen it. It's been pretty clear. You've seen it with guys like Rollins, and I think with Reigns, one of the issues. I don't think Reigns got picked up from anywhere, did he? He came from Performance Center.
Yeah, he's just one of their guys put in with two good guys.
He's got that look that Vince likes. He's got that look, but other than that, what really do you take away from Roman Reigns? When you see him outside the ring, does he look anything different? I mean, Seth Rollins has got that kind of quirky kind of style outside the ring. So's Dean Ambrose, but Roman Reigns, I mean, just plain bland.
I mean, I like the calm assurance that he has, but I've said this for about 2 years, and I said he's got more of a limited moveset than Cena. And
he's been trying, though, hasn't he? They're trying to give him more moves.
And I completely think that's what they should be doing with him.
It's a bit late.
And I suppose this is another point coming out of the podcast is, when are these guys ever ready? Because Triple H said you're never ready, and I'm inclined to agree with him on that point.
I don't know. Do you know what? I'd book this company completely different, so it's frustrating because I think, and I know
we'd watch the smaller guys though. That's where we go.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is for me is if I'm going to bring up somebody like Finn Balor, I'm not going to then change his gimmick and do a 360 on him like you've had with some of the guys they've brought up. Even the Ascension, it's not the Ascension that you saw in NXT. So when I bring up someone like Finn Balor, if I see him to be a champion, regardless of his size, I will get him there. I will get him to be that champion. And that's the way that I look at it with someone like that. But the issue is Vince doesn't have that mindset because Vince doesn't like that style.
And this would be the other thing for me that came out of that interview, is that Triple H said they know their business and they know their audience and all that kind of stuff. And then equally at the same time, he's giving old school wrestling terminology to, if I'm the top guy, I want to know what the house was. I want to know what I pulled in on the pay-per-views. That's irrelevant for me now, because at the moment, it hasn't been that like that for years for me. It's always been, yeah, I want to see the main event, but that's not the only reason a lot of wrestling fans tune in, is it? It's never just been about the champion, and that's the main problem we've got, is the one match pay-per-views they seem to have at the moment.
Well, in addition to that, having your matches where I personally believe some of these matches should be on pay-per-views, and they're putting them on Raw week on week out.
I mean, how the hell did we? I mean, again, not moaning, but how did we get Brian Rollins on Raw?
How do you get a lot of these matches? Why did we ever see the Wyatts go against each other in such a mundane way when, you know, that's such a huge thing you could have built over a period of time? It just rushed, and it's like, oh, you know what? Rowan's not doing much this week. Stick him in with Bray and let them go, and that's just where it's completely crazy what they're doing, because there's so much promise and there's so much to do, but they don't capitalize on any of it.
Yeah, I mean, you used to even have I think they like called them the coffee break segments backstage, where you'd have like Curtis Axel bump into CM Punk, whoever it was, and then they'd have a match later based around that. But that still works. But what doesn't work for me is I don't want to see Bryan versus Rollins on Raw. I want it built up properly into a proper match. And I mean, we were talking about that being the WrestleMania match, the main event, weren't we?
Well, that's what it should have been. That's how you then, like, let's say you want to kickstart the Raw after. You've hit the reset button. You've put the two young guys at the top of your company now. But that just never feels like that's what they want to do. It never feels like they're willing to take that jump, and that they know when that jump comes that guys like Cena are going to have to step down. And if Lesnar moves away at the end of this, it would have really been a prime opportunity to go there with that. But
I mean, we've moaned a lot, haven't we?
I don't know. I don't think it's moaning. I think it's just.
We want them to be better.
Yeah, I think the expectation. Let's not beat around the bush. They have got a huge roster of good talent. That's across both boards. NXT and the main roster has enough there, and they've got enough guys there that have shown, even when they've been in NXT, that when they come up, they could do something. But WWE have just done it wrong, and that's where I always go back to that stupid question of the brass ring. These guys seem to do it when they're in NXT because it seems like they've got a bit more freedom. When they get moved up to the main show, somebody has chosen a path for them, and they always do it wrong. So come on, it's not about the superstar, it's about the writers and what they're actually booking. And that's where everybody's come to that conclusion with Reigns. Everyone said with Reigns, it's not Reigns' fault, it's the way they booked him, it's the way that they did it.
That's what you got to say is, do you want an entertainment company or do you want a wrestling company?
And Vince wants an entertainment company, and that's the biggest trouble. I don't think he has to compromise it as much as he does. Let me put it that way. I think he's gone down that route,
and they're coming around, I would say, to tweaking the product a lot more quickly than they used to. As I said, I do not believe for 1 minute that the plan for last year's WrestleMania was that Daniel Bryan would be coming out on top. That just seemed like utter bullshit to me when Triple H was saying, you know, that was the plan of this 8 or 9 month arc, was that, you know, Daniel Bryan gets his WrestleMania moment. Bollocks, was it?
What did you think of the whole quick fire round with the names? Because I thought as well we could have done that just a little bit better. And like I say, I'm not.
It felt like they were filling time.
Yeah, I'm not really having any sort of digs at Austin, because I think Austin definitely got prepped before he went in there. I reckon he got told. I mean, Taz mentioned this as well on his podcast. I've been listening to Taz's podcast. All right, okay.
Are you getting paid to promote it?
but he also mentioned something, and I thought it was a really good point. Was, you know, as opposed to just being, you know, short and sweet with the questions, it was all done nicely. Like, he talked about Reigns, picture of Reigns comes up on the board. Talk about Triple H's childhood, picture of Triple H as a child. I mean, that was all a lot mapped out,
structured than the Vince one was, and I think Vince did really well how he answered, but I don't think he liked being put under the pressure that he was.
I think that's why. I think they booked Triple H because they wanted to say, well, Austin can get us over again here, but we'll tell you how it works this time. And that quick fire round thing, I just thought, fire a few names at him that he's not going to expect. Not the clique, you know, not his buddies. Fire at him someone, who's controversial and see how he gets on with that, or people he's not always seen eye to eye with. I thought that, to me, would have been a lot more interesting.
And I suppose from the podcast, I mean, we've covered where the product is in great depth, and there were a number of other things that come up, and I don't know if you just want to quickly, if we go through some of them.
Yeah, I just
I
say...
mean, China.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Anyway, sorry, you were going to say.
I was just going to say that I liked him talking about the Warrior. I thought that was very good that he mentioned the way, and that's the bit I do give
Triple H mediator.
Well, that for me. That's a huge thing. I give him props for, because I don't think if he was there, if he wasn't there and he wasn't in that position, that him or Bruno Sammartino or any of those guys would have made up with Vince, because we all know what Vince is like. He's ruthless, and he doesn't compromise very well. And I think that Triple H has done a fantastic job of sorting those issues out where many probably wouldn't have gone.
And I think that's it. I mean, he is between the literal rock and a hard place. He has quite an unenviable job that Jim Ross obviously had enough of over a number of times, over a number of different years. And it's not different to control. It is difficult to really control the talent, especially when you're having to toe a company line a lot of the time. And you can get the sense, and I think at times he probably has enough of it, and that's where he did throw Vince under the bus ever so slightly, because he's having to drink the company Kool-Aid in something he doesn't believe in, I suppose, half the time.
Yeah, and maybe people saw from that point of view the Punk related issues.
He shouldn't have. They didn't really go there, because I think if Austin was going to go there, he'd ask about the wedding and fire him on that day. Triple H obviously indicated that the plan was for him and Nash to be heavily involved in it. Again, I don't know if I'm completely buying that. I mean, Punk and Cena were well away by themselves, weren't they?
Yeah, he did say that Punk was an awkward guy to deal with. I mean, it just at the end of the day, let's like you said,
and that's true, and that's completely true. I would imagine
Triple H was stuck in a hard position. I imagine a lot of the decisions were not his. He just had to be, the messenger boy.
Very interesting to who picked out of who went over between Punk and Triple H, though.
I don't know. I can't answer that one.
dodging my bullets.
And then let's just obviously mention what you mentioned just a few seconds ago. China. So
that was the reason he gave was just laughable, for want of a better phrase. I don't want you Googling China and seeing what comes up. Obviously, one night in China, but you got no problem.
Oh, so you've been Googling it, yeah?
That's it. I mean, you got no problem with people Googling Mike Tyson and having the word rapist come up, obviously, then, so that's fine. You can't use that defense if you've let others in for were a lot worse than being involved in porn.
I was gonna say that's what probably China used to say, letting people in, but
it's only Sean Waltman.
Is Waltman not Hall of Fame yet? No.
Well, no, that's probably probably he doesn't want people Googling X-Pac just because he was crap. That's
you complaining about the styles of the 1-2-3 kid there?
I preferred the 1-2-3 kid.
Oh dear. What about Razor? 6?
I didn't watch him when he was in WCW. He wasn't there long enough.
He didn't really wrestle, to be honest, in WCW. He didn't do an awful lot. He was cruiserweight champ, I think, for a while.
Yeah, it wasn't everyone. But that's the thing. You can't give the reason that he gave about his, his daughter looking up on the internet, because it just does not ring true. God, if you looked up Jerry Lawler on Google, God knows what you'd find.
I think if you even just looked up the WWE Attitude Era in general, what would you find? I mean, some of the risky storylines. What was it in Austin? Going to Brian Pillman's house with a gun.
Bang.
I mean,
he's got a gun.
I mean, when you think about those sort of segments, and just even the divas back then.
Well, they weren't even divas, were they? Mildly, porn stars.
So I mean, it is a bit. I don't know. It's that whole apparently reality era where you can't. I don't know. You can't seem to do anything slightly risque, but it's
apart from talk about the business completely openly, like it's not a business anymore.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, it's just different people, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing for one and another rule for another. It's when they fancy pushing the boundaries, they'll go and do it.
Oh, totally. And I mean, if you want to talk about some crappy answer, which I really did not want him to give, what did you think about what he said about Brock Lesnar and his future with the WWE, that is basically in his hands? I was like, oh, for God's sake, you should be signing this guy up. You shouldn't be. The biggest question should not be whether Brock Lesnar wants to go back to Ultimate Fighting.
I think Lesnar does want to go back to Ultimate Fighting, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think
but
if you
they
look
should
at
be trying to tie this guy up.
Yes, they should.
Not like trying to go to his beck and call, because whether they like it or not, UFC is a major competitor now for WWE. They shouldn't be letting one of them. But he's the top guy, and like we said, they haven't just made him look strong. They've made him look like bloody, Incredible Hulk kind of strong. They can't just bow out and just say he's going to go at the end of WrestleMania. They should be absolutely fighting tooth and nail to try and keep him. I couldn't believe it. But the answer was, we're constantly talking. Great. That's not reassuring whatsoever.
I think Lesnar's getting to that shape. You just got to have a look. I mean, he's getting in that sort of shape where I think he's looking towards something bigger.
Just make them pay you more, or work more dates. You get paid more.
I know the thing is with him is I just think that it is with him. It's about competition, and I think he probably will think that his stint here, he's done everything he needs to do. I don't think he thinks anything else. I think he just thinks about what he's achieved. And if you look at his career, it's all been about achievements. I mean, I know he walked away quite early, but he walked away because he wanted. At first he wanted to play. Didn't he want to play for the NFL? But
yeah, he went to the Vikings for a trial.
But I mean that didn't work out, so he went on and conquered the UFC. So I mean this is the guy that sort of thinks in his head, he can sort of come and go as he pleases. He doesn't like to be tied down, and that can lead me to believe that he probably won't be there after WrestleMania. Although WWE, like you said, should be doing everything they can, because he's one of those guys.
Just thinking of it from a company point of view. They shouldn't even.
And it looks bad. It would look really bad. I mean, if he goes over there with Punk.
Yeah, I mean, it would be
two of the biggest. I mean, what does it say?
The two biggest draws of the last, 4 or 5 years.
What does it say for UFC though? No one ever puts that back, do they? What does it say about I'll probably get loads of UFC. They won't get this far. But if you're a UFC fan, what does it say to you if you're if you're just acquiring ex WWE guys who kind of, you guys don't see this as a proper sport, and these are probably
it's
biggest
ridiculed.
Names.
Most of the time, wrestling's going to be ridiculed by the UFC for whatever reason it may be, and obviously the legitimacy is the main one, which obviously Brock Lesnar brought back with him. But that's it. You can't, as a company, and whether Vince likes it or not, they are the competitor now in terms of where this bracket. I don't care if he thinks it's whatever TV show. If you're looking at something similar, it's UFC. That's the closest thing you're going to get. And you can't be having your top guys go over there, especially if you've built them up we're getting on for nearly a year now since The Undertaker. You can't have him walk away at the end of it. The storyline makes no sense to build someone up that much and then just let them go.
Well,
so another controversial point where Triple H is not listening to Vince Jr. Raw, 2 hours.
Well, all I have to say on that is it should be 2 hours.
Can we do that already, please?
Yeah, can we just not even question it? I mean, it's unanimous. Whatever the deal is that they have with, is it USA Network?
Yeah, I think it is for Raw.
Whatever the deal is, just change it.
It comes down to money, and he said it comes down to money, and that's it. And we've always said it comes down to money. Triple H's WWE also gets. He wants to see the Divas have more ring time, doesn't he?
They've got to have some Divas first.
Well, well, let's not call them divas. Can we just call them women wrestlers or just wrestlers? Because they've got some very talented girls on there. Everyone from Paige to Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Natalia, AJ Lee when she's there. You know, there's some good technical sound wrestlers there. So just, I mean, the Total Divas thing is just got to stop, surely. I mean, it's not going to, but surely it's got, if you want it to be. And that's it. We come back to it again and again. This is not wrestling. This is Vince's sports and entertainment. So I suppose my final question for you: would you rather remain in Vince's sport entertainment world, or would you like to go to a Triple H, slightly orientated towards wrestling kind of world? Because I know which one I'm siding with.
Is this even a question? I think everybody's going to be saying Triple H. I mean, yeah, maybe that's the question we put out to everybody today is, you know, what do you want to see moving forward? Do you want to see this Vince sports entertainment era that we have, or do you want to see a more sort of edgy and more pro wrestling orientated product in terms of NXT moving forward? Are you a Triple H guy or are you a Vince McMahon guy?
I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to this week, though. Is it Wednesday, the 11th? Is that Takeover?
It is, yeah.
That's and you got Takeover and Fastlane within 11 days of each other, and I don't think it takes a genius to probably work out which one we're looking forward to more, does it?
No, I'm gathering because I did catch NXT, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I'm not sure. Is it Adrian Neville versus Fergal Devin? Oh, fucking hell, Fergal Devin.
Finn Balor, yeah, number one contender.
Finn Balor. Yeah, is it their number one contenders match at Takeover?
Takeover, yeah.
I think we're going to get to see another look to Balor this event. I think
I'm still calling it Balor.
Well, I got used to saying it the other way now. Just by the way they go, Finn Balor.
No, I mean, and this is what's great is that you look at the card and I think there's 5 matches on there at the moment, and they all just look good. You know, I'm quite happy watching any of them.
I think we're going to get the Punisher version of Balor at NXT Takeover, which I'm looking forward to. I really do think that's coming. So
is Takeover? Is it Takeover Rival?
Yeah,
or Rivals,
something like that. But I think it's going to be really good. I'm looking forward to it. I actually hope Balor wins that match. I want to see him as a number one contender against Zayn or I don't really want to see Adrian Neville.
I'll tell you what, I'd take a fatal 4-way between them, but the elimination type.
That'd be good. I think it's going to be a real hard hitting match though. That match and obviously
they're the two. I'm not going to belittle the other people on this and say there's not a good card, but the 2 matches we're looking forward to are going to be Sami Zayn versus Owens and Neville versus Finn. I'm not even going to try and say a second name anymore.
Finn Balor.
Balor.
That's how it goes. Finn Balor.
Like a dollar.
I don't know who that is on the commentary team that does it like that. It's not Saxton, is it? What's the other guy? What's the other one that had a really bad WWE career?
I'm not telling you.
What's his name? The one that was with the Miz.
I can't remember.
The guy.
Well, this is such a crappy way to end our podcast.
What? No, it's not. Not if
it really is.
Oh, what's his name? Not the A-Train guy.
Keep going. You were right there.
Yeah, the one that was with the Miz. What's his freaking name?
Alex.
Oh, Alex Riley. I don't even think it's him that does it though. I think it's the other one. Oh, it's the other one. The one that looks like Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman? I hope you don't mean Corey Grace.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't go Finn Balor. Anyway, let us know by the comments box below who that guy is. That'd be great.
It's Pee Wee Herman.
Cheers. There's a picture where he looks like Pee Wee Herman. That's all I'm saying.
What's Renee Young done to her hair? She's chopped it off. I bet you're devastated.
She still looks alright.
She still looks alright. Well, there you go. A absolutely glowing accolade there from Delzinski on Rennie Young's new haircut.
What? What else do you want
to say? She looks alright. Yeah, she looks alright.
She does. So yeah, I mean that kind of brings us to a close. So everybody knows that Alex Riley is not the guy I was talking about. But there you go.
Rich Brennan.
Oh look.
Tom Phillips, Jason Albert.
Tom Phillips rings a bell. He's not.
I'm sure he does. He might be the ring keeper.
Let's call it a day on that one. So, I mean, guys, let us know how you felt about the old podcast between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H. Did you get everything you wanted out of it? Or did it kind of leave you still wanting a bit more? Are you a Triple H guy? Are you a Vince McMahon guy moving forward? I think from our side, it's unanimously a Triple H guy's side. Don't know what that kind of means, but there you go. Weeds, do you have anything left to add to this week's We Talk, which obviously was late, but we will be back at the regular spot of Saturdays moving forward.
That is correct. And obviously, all I'm going to do is obviously because I'm a Triple H guy, is going to read my latest edition of Muscle and Fitness. And until next week, have a great week, guys. See you next Saturday.
There is no way he's going to read that, okay? Unless he's just looking at the pictures. So
only when Steph's on the front.
All right, guys, that is the end of another We Talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will catch you next time. Laters.